late into the war, she joined in on the Entente's side in May 1915, after extensive parleying with both parties, earned her international disapprobation, which only increased with time. Her entry into the war also deepened pre-existing fault lines in society, with right-wing and conservative interventionists ranged against left-wing and democratic neutralists, though, confusingly, Democrats could also back the war in support of Belgium, while the official Socialist Party stood somewhere in the middle, neither for the war nor against it. For 3 years, the Italian and Austro-Hungarian armies grappled with one another in the mountains and limestone uplands along their common border. It was, as an on-the-spot British observer remarked, a desperate country to fight in. Then, on the 24th of October 1917, Italy suffered an almost catastrophic defeat when German and Austro-Hungarian forces broke Marshal Cadorna's army at Caporetto and pursued it as far as the Piave River. There the army held, before the Anglo-French forces that were coming to its support had got into position to lend a hand, and began first a recovery and then a fight-back that ended in October 1918, when it in turn broke the Austro-Hungarians at the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. The First World War cost Italy some 650,000 dead. If this casualty list more or less matched that of Great Britain, who lost 750,000 men and fought for 9 months more, a macabre form of calculation and not in itself of great value, it did not earn Italy much in the way of international acknowledgement or recognition. In the aftermath, both Georges Clemenceau and David Lloyd George denigrated Italy's military record, the Welshman declaring that when compared with his own countrymen, the Italians had no idea what fighting meant. At the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Italy's territorial claims were made to look grasping and cynical, which by no means all of them were. In Italy, Mussolini poured criticism on the government in the pages of his newspaper Il Popolo d'Italia. By making only vague and high-sounding public declarations, but failing to equalize the burdens paid by town and country in terms of both blood and money, it had failed morally and economically. How Italy had come to lose the 12th Battle of the Isonzo, i.e. Caporetto, was something of a mystery, but as a frontline soldier himself, Mussolini was certainly not inclined to blame the ordinary fante, infantryman, despite Cadorna's talk of deficient resistance by some detachments. The future, Mussolini declared, would now be in the hands not of the old elites, civilian or military, but of the trenchocracy, which come peacetime would unite class and nation. The First World War would have dramatic consequences for Italian politics. No less important, though much less obvious at the time, were the strategic lessons it offered, and those it did not. Before the war, soldiers and politicians had agreed that Italy was strategically vulnerable. Her lengthy coastline and her islands were wide open to attack, and the mountains along which her northern borders ran to penetration. With the two major naval powers in the Mediterranean, Great Britain and France, on her side, her vulnerability to enemy sea power was never really exposed. Wartime Italy faced only minor naval threats from Austro-Hungarian and German units in Pola and Trieste, and by the war's end had support in the shape of British, American, Australian and Japanese naval vessels, and a mass of nets and mines closing the neck of the Adriatic. So with no great sea battles in prospect, the major task the Italian navy faced was shepherding convoys across the Mediterranean alongside her Entente allies. Coal, food and weapons from her western partners, not least the United States, flowed along the arteries formed by well-defended sea lanes. None of this would Italy enjoy when Mussolini took her into another war. When compared with the war fought by the powers that would in 1940 and 1941 become her enemies, the land war that the Italian armies fought between 1915 and 1918 was characterized by particular local conditions and